You're listening to Grain of Salt, a podcast hosted by Donnie Bertlist and Christa and covering the Buffalo Niagara region's food and drink scene. Today's episode features Christa and Donnie's annual year-end wrap-up. They chat about the good and bad of 2014 and the things they look forward to in 2015.
Christa, we are back for a third year in a row. By popular demand, I feel like people look forward to this podcast. Like, this is how they know their year is ending.
We don't know that. You just feel that way.
Yeah. I'd like to think that people look forward to this podcast. As far as like listener views, like last year's was like by far the most popular podcast.
Really? See, I never see any of that.
Yeah.
Was it because I was railing on about frozen yogurt?
The frozen yogurt bit, that was like the only thing that I got text messages from.
Really?
Yeah.
Where people who were really upset because they love frozen yogurt?
There was that. And then there's also people who are like, Christa really hates frozen yogurt.
Put that on my tombstone, Donnie.
Yes. Somebody, whoever eulogizes you, that's like the first thing, like, she hated frozen yogurt.
Just so you know, everybody. She really hated. In that note, we're passing out gelato this evening.
But I this is hands down my favorite thing to do, Buffalo Eats or any food related thing. Is to recap the year with you, because it's really fun to look back and see like what happened. And
it's not something we would do except for in this format. I mean, we would maybe gossip or chat. It would
be weird if we like decided to prepare a list and hang out at a bar. And
it would be weird, but I wouldn't put it past us.
But I think this is probably the best year that we can talk about too, because we recapped 2012 and 2013, and I think the stuff that happened this year, there's so much good stuff that happened.
And so little bad stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was telling
industry-wise.
Yeah, right. I was telling you before the podcast started that I was trying to look down the list of like restaurants that closed, and there was like two that I'm like kind of sad about.
Yeah.
But like,
right.
It's kind of crazy how this year turned out.
Well, let's talk about those two first. Let's just start off talking about what closed.
Memoriam. I forgot how to say that.
I don't know what you're talking about. In memoriam.
Thank you.
Well, as I was saying, and I've said on this podcast, and I've said in every other venue, when somebody asks me, shouldn't people be scared that so many new restaurants are opening? And I always say, the cream rises to the top, and that the restaurants that are closing or have closed are restaurants that were probably long overdue to close. We're not really seeing an amazing, exciting joint close.
Yeah.
So, people, hopefully their interest in restaurants and what they're seeking from their local restaurant, their levels are sort of rising as opposed to, staying at the same level.
Yeah,
anyway.
I agree. I think those are the guys who are more prone to leave, I guess.
So a really sad loss this year was Delish.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Which is wasn't so much a restaurant, although in some of its incarnations it served lunch.
Yeah, I think it had a couple different things they were going for when Deb moved to Amherst Street. I think there was like at first place was going to be the coffee shop with like the progressive pour over service and stuff
which
like
was
that.
fantastic coffee.
Yeah, and then I mean obviously they had the cooking school right next to it, so like that was a big part of it.
Yeah,
but it was one of those movements, though, where like a lot of people championed it as the rise of Black Rock.
Yes,
and it's weird to see it not happen. And obviously, like, who knows if it's location based or I know Deb went on to do a new project.
Yes, Deb is working for one of the community colleges now, or maybe even both. I don't know.
Yeah, and so I know that's probably factored into the decision, but to see that maybe not succeed in that area maybe shows maybe Black Rock isn't like ready yet to hold. I don't know. I was trying to figure like if that was a representation of what.
Well, I mean, it might be. I don't know that Deb or the landlord or anybody would appreciate us drawing that conclusion. To be honest with you, and I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
But I think that if you go eat at, Mark Goldman's place,
Black Rock
or
Kitchen.
the Phoenix, or any of the places that have opened there, they're not really neighborhood places. They're places where people from North Buffalo and the Elmwood Village are going to eat. And so if you have a business that is open during the day and is reliant upon foot traffic and daytime commerce, it's not really happening there.
That's a good point.
And it won't until either the kind of thing that moves into that neighborhood suits the people who already live there, or until the people who live there move out and the gentrification process happens, which I'd hate to see happen, but it happens.
Yeah.
And so I think that for a little while now, it's going to be challenging to see what happens with the businesses on that street that are not nighttime businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, it's curious because I mean, you have Spars right down the street, which isn't a restaurant, but it's.
Yeah, I would say been there for 40 years.
I know, right? But I
Joe's
think
been
like
5, 6, 7 years. He's been building that clientele.
Yeah, but I feel like I also think of that as like on the outside, it looks like the old standard that like the neighborhood would go to, and I'm sure a lot of the neighborhoods will go there.
Of course,
I think in a lot of people's opinion, that's like kind of like the hip sausage place.
It is
like where you can get like the best shit that like you can't find anywhere else.
Absolutely. It's done a good job of doing both of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, when Joe came in and studied under Eric and then took over, he made sure that they continued to make Italian sweet and hot and you know, Polish sausage and the things that the neighborhood was accustomed to buying. But now they offer, I don't know, 47 different kinds of homemade sausages or something. So
every time I go in there,
it's what I always say Lombardo's does well, which is to maintain the existing clientele, but to also make sure to seek out what new people, young people, whatever the current dining crowd is interested
that's a great
in.
Comparison,
and I think it's super challenging to do and to not lose your way and your vision.
And to cut off like all the standard customers.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't, and it's a fool's errand to do that.
Yeah.
But I wish we had more businesses who approach things that way instead of just, you know me, always railing on people who never change their menu, only having the same menu for 25 years.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Oh,
so
that's
anyway,
for a podcast another day.
C'est la vie to delish. But some of the good news that is coming up in 2015 is that Public will have its own place on Grant Street. So hopefully we'll have good coffee again.
Yeah, right.
And the Daily Planet on Hurdle has it's not pour over, but it's still another local coffee option. So somebody please continue to grow third wave coffee in Buffalo before we all die, because the Clover machine at the Starbucks on Elmwood is always broken. Anyway, okay. The other closure.
The other closure is Sterling Tavern.
Yes.
On Hurdle, which, I mean, I don't know. It's been around a while. I'd say at least 20 years, probably.
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount of time that the current or most recent owners had it.
But
it had a reputation. I mean, he was definitely, I hate to use this term loosely, but as people know, the soup Nazi from Seinfeld, he was definitely the burger Nazi.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that was it was kind of like the appeal of it. It's like, oh, you might not get your food.
Or you might wait an hour and a half for it.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan, but I know that a lot of people, diehard fans and very friendly with the owners and ate there all the time and loved it. And we still have yet to have a killer burger place in Buffalo. And I hate to say that because there are a lot of people who are making good efforts.
Yeah.
And there are a couple fine dining restaurants who are running burgers late night or just on one night a week.
Exactly.
But, and Mike A., God knows he makes a good effing burger. But we do not have a dedicated burger place yet that kicks ass. And ABV is coming. Maybe we can
fingers crossed.
Maybe we can hope for that.
Yeah. I went, God, a long time ago. And it was the only review that I posted. It was very negative because I had a horrible experience. But it was the only review I posted where I got significant amount of backlash.
Yeah.
And people being like, that is the best place on earth, and you're crazy.
Right. No, it'd be like if you tried to talk smack about Barbell.
Yeah.
Like if you went in there and were one of the few people who have gone in one time and had a terrible experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And you talk about it publicly, the rest of the world's going to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But the truth is, Sterling Tavern was not a once in a while you have a bad experience.
I went a couple times.
The truth is it was really hard to have a good, well-timed, you and your guest both receive their burgers at the same time, hot and fresh, with less than an hour wait.
Not overcooked. I would say also the beer I thought was excellent. It was a really cool place that it was really down to earth and neighborhoody, but their beer selection was lights out.
They were
which
well
on
known
Hurdle,
for that.
Really, there wasn't that option. I mean, Adam does a good job at Craving, and I know Public House has a good selection.
Well, it's getting better, but
Yeah.
4
But they
years
were-
ago,
yeah,
there
they were
wasn't
the-
anybody on Hurdle. Who
Yeah,
was
they were
doing
the
that.
leaders in that. And then I also like the atmosphere of it. I like that kind of place, like where it feels like everyone knows everybody and it's very casual. And you're sitting in like a chair that's probably from like a fire hall, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, like Old Buffalo.
Exactly. But yeah, I won't miss the burgers, but I'm sorry that other people are going to be missing the
Yes,
burgers,
well, I
I
mean, the
guess.
staple of their neighborhood for sure, and it'll be interesting. I won't say anything, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in that space.
And I'll be very curious. That was really it for the bad stuff. I also wrote down we kind of lost the pop-up craze that really kicked into 2013.
We did. The workshop got a real full-time job.
Yeah, and has his hands full with
The very successful kitchen and cocktail providers at Buffalo proper.
Yeah, the people behind Omakase got a little bit busier.
They got other things to do.
Yeah, and Steve. I mean, they did the
Midnight
last
Mass
one. Yeah, the
at
Midnight
Bistro
Mass.
Europa
Yeah,
was
they did the last one in March, but
was put on hold. I mean, he built something, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah,
but it'll be back in
Yes.
January.
Yeah, that's great.
People should like 716 Midnight Mass on Facebook if
Yes,
they want to know
you
about
definitely
Midnight
should do
Mass,
that.
because it sells out really fast.
Yeah, but I was kind of bummed because last year that was really fun.
It
I mean,
was.
we both of us went to a good chunk of them. And,
Yeah.
and it was always interesting to see somebody just given like complete freedom to do whatever
Well,
they
that's
wanted.
my favorite. You know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Nobody telling them what they can and can't do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
And it also, I mean, there was also a certain part where like I would say like a lot of us went to similar ones, so it was kind of like you got to hang out with your friends or people who are off of work or industry.
Well, I
people.
mean, the food crowd is really like a really hardcore 400 or 500 people, so you kind of see the same people everywhere.
But it was really
At the
fun to-
private small stuff anyway.
Yeah, it was always like a fun, like everyone's just hanging out, having a good time.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing to note is that Martin Cooks has had 2 pop-ups this year from out-of-town chefs, one from a Toronto chef and one recently from a gentleman from Detroit cooking Nigerian food. So, the idea of out-of-town people coming in and doing pop-ups in a more legal fashion in like a legit restaurant scenario.
Not where you're getting like a text like the day before telling you where to show up.
Right, that you're going to like meet at the 3rd fire hydrant on the 7th Street under the full moon, right? So,
I do remember one specific text. He sent the wrong address.
oh no.
And I had to send, I believe it was Ed. I was like, did you mean this? Because that's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
He's like,
how many
"Oh,
hundreds
crap."
of people did you send this to? So I think that the idea of more out-of-town chefs doing things here is a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah.
And I also think the International Institute has been connected to a handful of immigrant chefs or immigrant cooks who are interested in opening a restaurant, kind of like doing a pop-up to get the idea if people really
Okay.
like their food.
Yeah.
And that's also another really fascinating method for using a pop-up to prove a point. And so I think people should keep an eye on Martin Cooks and the International Institute for information like that if they're interested in trying out a pop-up.
And I think we've seen a couple, like in the cocktail world, a couple of those where people have, like Vera, I know, has had, and Ballyhoo recently had people come in and do cocktails and stuff like that. So kind of like
visiting bartender.
Yeah, so not necessarily a pop-up, but kind of like that.
Because the restaurant and the business is still functioning like it normally does. They just have a guest.
Yes,
it's like having
exactly.
a guest chef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Cool
those
stuff.
are cool. I will say we're going to kind of jump into the good stuff, but one of them that I just remembered was the Butter Block, which is the pastry pop-up. Their names are escaping me right now. But
Colleen.
Yes.
It's Colleen Stillwell.
Yes. And
She's selling out of Patrick Langau's farm
off
shop
of,
on
Lexington.
Ashland in
Yeah.
Lexington.
Yeah. And that's kind of a cool pop-up. They're kind of taking over a
Her
spot.
stuff is incredible.
It's fantastic. Me and Allie just had it, I think, a couple weeks ago for the first
her
time.
stuff is incredible.
Yeah. I had her homemade Oreos, and they were outstanding.
Well, and the truth is the overhead on a bakery is insane.
Yeah. For
And
such
the
a low
product
margin.
is so perishable.
Yeah.
And has a pretty low margin. And gosh, the cost of butter earlier this fall.
Yeah.
Like, we almost put, bakeries out of business. So I think that her doing a pop-up where she has a framework for selling her product, but is not incurring the massive overhead of a bakery.
Yeah.
For a small independent chef is a really great starter plan.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah,
I mean, God knows, wouldn't we love to have her stuff every day of the week?
Oh God, I mean, I haven't had the croissant, but somebody after we wrote our little post was like, it was insane.
No, I mean, because we don't really have access to real French pastry here in Buffalo. Exactly. Most of the pastry here is very Italian focused, or it is very much frozen and then par baked kind of grocery store. Even our smaller bakeries are trending towards that because it's so much more efficient and there's less waste. Real French pastry is something that I have to typically go to Toronto for.
Yeah.
And her stuff is great. So
so that was something I was pretty pumped to see this year.
yeah.
So on the first ever episode of Grain of Salt, we talked a lot about a lot of the good restaurant openings that happened.
Specifically downtown, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Ocean, Bourbon and Butter.
Yep. Buffalo Proper.
and Black Sheep.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear what we have to say about those,
I will tell you, spoiler, we like it.
we're very happy.
Yeah.
Go listen to that first podcast because we don't want to.
We don't want to rehash it too much. I mean, super quick notes. We're super pumped that Ed Forrester is cooking food that we can eat.
Holy hell. Tell me about it.
Yeah. We're super pumped that Steve and Ellen Gedra have all these new toys to
Their
play
kitchen
with,
is
and-
incredible.
Yeah. And that now they have the ability to not turn away people at dinner service.
Well, and I think that the truth is, and I have no proof for this, but I think that they're still baby stepping.
Yeah.
And I think that when they get fully amped up, it's going to blow people's doors off.
I totally agree. And Bourbon and Butter, super happy that
Bruce Weisela and Chris Dagler in the kitchen
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah,
Daring duo.
Yeah, two super talented chefs, and they've really reformed the space to be a place where a lot of people want to hang out. I mean, I've gone there for dinner service, and usually it's pretty much packed.
Yeah, no, they're doing very well, and the larger dining room has been repurposed rather successfully to a banquet space. It actually feels far more reasonable as a banquet space. As a dining room, it always felt, even when it was full, it's sort of just this maybe it's the height of the ceilings and how small the room is. Like it felt tall.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
it works very well.
It works really well, and Mike's booked look like crazy with banquets there.
Yeah.
So it was a good move.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing for the hotel.
Yeah. And then Ocean is just a gorgeous renovated building with really progressive seafood from a super young, talented
And
chef.
a really affordable menu. When I was in
Yeah.
there the other day, everything was under $20 on the dinner menu.
Yeah.
Everything.
Most everything's under like $12.
And the lunch menu was like $11 for pick two sort of thing, which was kind
Yeah.
of goofy. But the truth is, the portions were insane, and it's got the great po' boy is on there,
yeah.
like all the stuff that everybody loves that
Yeah.
Jim's been doing for years. So like, and it's beautiful. And
Yeah.
who doesn't want to go there?
Yeah. So that's a super quick recap. If you want to hear us talk even more about it, episode 1.
Yeah.
But that was just the Cliff Notes.
Cliff notes.
Yeah.
Now I'm hungry.
I know, right? So let's start. Like earlier this year, Sato opened,
Yes.
which really gave Buffalo like a really great ramen selection.
It did, and they've got other stuff too.
They do, yeah.
What I love about Sato, so we should tell people who don't know, is that
Yes.
Serene Gardens was this little Japanese place that was located in a Japanese style nursery
Yeah.
on Grand Island that
Yeah.
we had been to, and that their move downtown to Elmwood really gave them a full kitchen to work with, and they were able to produce more and better food because of that.
Yeah.
What I love about their food is that it reminds me very much of authentic Japanese cuisine that I ate when I was a kid, made by Japanese people.
Oh, yeah, 'cause you
it's
grew up
very
in Seattle,
Yeah,
so
it's
you
very
were in there.
homey, and the kimchi and the tofu, everything's really delicious. If you go for the more American stuff, it's definitely more Americanized. The karage chicken and that kind of stuff feels far more familiar, but it's really, really lovely. And I think that the decor of the existing space, which was once 03, is really suited to what they're
totally
doing there.
agree. Yeah.
I really like it there.
Yeah, I do too.
I really, and the thing I love is his sake selection is insane.
Yeah, well, he's like a certified sake sommelier.
Right. And
which
he's
is
bringing
pretty big
in
deal.
crazy Japanese beers, but that you cannot get anywhere else in this town
Yeah,
anywhere
he's
at
got
all.
great connections with that.
He does. And they're pairing cheese with with the sake, which is
Really?
Jill helped them with, and is really a fascinating experience. It's actually on the menu, I think, is a cheese and sake pairing, and it's fantastic.
I've always wanted to get into sake. It's kind of one of those like intimidating things like wine, where like I have no idea where to
There's
start.
a lot to learn, but it's not as, I don't think it's as complicated as wine, but maybe that's because I don't know as much about sake as I do about wine, but I don't think it's as complicated.
All right.
So, Sato's great.
Yeah,
What
Sato's
el-
awesome.
What else do we have that's new that we're excited about?
Valle de Mexico.
Right, the place in South Buffalo.
South Buffalo has the most authentic Mexican in Western New York.
Yes.
And that sentence is ridiculous.
And well, it is ridiculous, and it's very affordable. And I would say it's fair to say that it's better than the Medina outlets, which we've been
Yes.
pushing the last couple years
Yeah.
as really being
Which
the best
I think
Mexican.
are good.
They're
maybe
great.
a little inconsistent
They're-
and also limited.
Well, right. I mean, Mariachi del Oro has a couple things on its menu that are great.
Yeah.
The taco place, the El Gran Burrito, which I love. I also love the other place.
Monte Alban.
Yeah. I love it there. I love there too. But, seasonal. Those taco places are seasonal and somewhat inconsistent.
Yeah.
And, really long ways away. And if you go to South Buffalo, you can have some pretty great food.
Yeah.
And it's not far.
Who the hell? Never in a million years would I have guessed that I would
I
go
know.
to the middle of South Buffalo and have like the best tacos or tortas or things like that.
I know,
Yeah.
but South Buffalo's come a long way. If you look at the
True.
Lackawanna area, right, we've got
true.
Black Iron Bistro,
Yeah, that's
which
another
opened,
one on the list.
Killer,
Yeah.
right? Great, fantastic, super focused, selected, highly curated fare from Chef Brian McCosey there.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
And not compromising the fact that he's in Lackawanna.
Right. No, he's like, whatever, most of my clients are from Buffalo, I cook for Buffalo people. and then Chef Tab's place.
Yeah, and Winfield Pub.
Winfield's
on Ridge.
Pub, which is doing pub food, but all from scratch and
Yeah.
all made with real
Yeah.
ingredients.
Kind of like a tricking, I don't want to say tricking, but like kind of tricking the customers and be like, oh no, I know you love all this stuff,
Right.
but I'm also going to add a little extra.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a great thing, and I want to see. I hope we continue to see more of that, along with to carry on the conversation about Valle de Mexico and Sato, more sort of places that have an immigrant or an ethnic
Yeah.
flair
Yeah,
done
yeah.
properly.
Yeah.
For example, Miss Hot Cafe, and
yeah.
the places that are really doing well are exciting right now.
Do you think that the that demographic of people who want to open up ethnic restaurants that maybe represents their culture or background are picking up on the idea that people now want to eat that kind of food?
Yes.
They don't have to dumb down the food?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think we could have had a Miss Hot Cafe had we not had a Peking Quick One
Yeah.
house home style menu.
Yeah.
I think and
That,
I think those
that was written up by, Andrew Galarno like dozens of times.
right. I think those things those are things that are falling into places. More and more people feeling like, oh, well, the stuff that all this time I've been thinking just me and my family want to eat. Maybe
Yeah.
more people want
Yeah,
to eat
now
that.
these hipsters with their cameras that take pictures of it want to eat it.
They text about it before they even take a bite. Yes, those people, of which we are sometimes some of.
I
So
am that person.
anyway, what else is new that we need to talk about?
We need to also talk about Brad Rowell was the sous chef at Park Country Club under James Roberts.
Right, but we should point out that Brad is not just the former sous chef at Park Country Club.
He's a big deal.
I mean, he worked at
the Spotted Pig.
the Spotted Pig for years, and he was in London working, and he
won awards in Colorado.
He
I know.
won awards in Colorado for the restaurant that he opened there with a partner. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been very successful.
Very talented.
Prior,
chef,
he came to work at Park Country Club to kind of like have a steady job and figure out the scene before he laid down any foundations.
And so me and you knew him just because we're familiar with people in the restaurant industry.
Sure.
And because I like to think that we gravitate towards talented people and want to, meet them and talk to them.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I've known James a long time, and I used to be a person who showed up at the kitchen at Park Country Club to hang out and say hi all the time, though I don't have time for that anymore.
No.
And he was eager to introduce me to Brad, and Brad is such a great people person. It's hard not to
God.
just adore him
Yeah.
right off the bat.
Yeah, and we had him on a podcast for the Eat It Up podcast. He was like one of our in the 70s, and we kind of talked to him because we knew eventually he was going to be more of a public figure in the dining scene.
He wasn't going to stay a sous chef at a country club in the suburbs forever.
No. And so in April, Elm Street Bakery, which is one of my favorite places in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's
Western New York, rather.
Absolutely incredible, fantastic place.
Yeah. He launched their dinner service, which has been one of my favorite places to eat.
Talk about an immersive experience. I always said if Elm Street Bakery had their own line of clothing, they'd be able to sell it. Because it is such an immersive experience. When we were talking to Brenda Alacy at Brenda's Bites, we kept talking about how that's what really makes restaurants work in other cities, and that we don't have a lot of restaurants who really get that here, that immersive experience. And Elm Street's a perfect example of that.
Like, even down to, like, we were walking through the market and looking at, like, their vinegars. Like, I was just, like, admiring the bottle and labeling.
That's it. Totally.
It's like, it's ridiculous.
No, we live in a world where you're competing with companies that have millions of dollars to invest in thinking about those tiny little things.
Yeah.
Even if you can't afford to play the same role that they do in other people's lives, you can afford to pay attention to the details in your own business.
Yeah. And they've nailed it, and he's nailed the menu. I think over time he's really created a menu that works so well in a wood fire oven.
Well, and that's what people need to understand is that they're really only working with a wood fire oven there. They don't have
He's
a
got
big
maybe
gas
like little
range.
tiny fryers.
Yeah,
but like,
they don't have the capacity to cook anything they want. They're working out of this oven. So there's a limitation, but he's using it. And I haven't been there to eat dinner since last spring when they first started. But he's using it hopefully to his benefit, that he can imbue all of this sort of like flavor and rusticness to his dishes through the use of that wood fire oven.
We went maybe a couple weeks ago, and we had, I don't know, we just had, it's kind of one of those places where they offer a lot of small plates. There's really nothing over $20 on the menu. And so you can really try a bunch of stuff. And I think we tried like 9 things. I was with 4 people, and but it was amazing. Like that kind of food, that like very straightforward, but just really great ingredients and great preparation and great execution.
Well, and thoughtfulness.
Yeah, it's just I love that stuff, and he's just nailing it out of the park. Like, it's one of my top 3 favorite places to eat.
That's good. I have to get back there.
Yeah. And so it's exciting to see him out in the front and showing people what he can do.
Yeah,
he's a super talented guy.
Well, and he's really, unlike some chefs we know, he's super personable too. So
he is super personable. He's very smiley.
He's the warmest guy in the world.
I would say top 3 beards.
Well, that's one of the things we always talk about is that entire crew is bearded.
Yeah. The other thing I had on here, British Chippy opened this year.
Right? Another example of people bringing their country's cuisine or fare or specialty item to us. And people need to understand that fish and chips is not the same thing as a fish fry.
God.
Okay, so don't go expecting a fish fry. If you want a fish fry, go somewhere else.
A 10-pound slice of haddock on top of
well, right, and the process of like wrapping it in paper sort of steams it a little bit. It makes it soft, and that's the fries are supposed to be that way. Like, it's supposed to be that way. Yeah. It may not be your bag, but that's what a fish and chips is supposed to be.
And don't hate mushy peas, because they're delicious.
Mushy peas are the best. Yeah. I love their curry sauce.
Their curry sauce is outstanding.
It is.
Yeah. So this is also, we should say, this is a couple behind English Pork Pie Company.
Right.
Which is like internationally renowned.
Yes, Gordon Ramsay orders sausages from them.
Yeah. And it's kind of it's one of those places where you could drive by this spot like 1,000 times and you just think it's a generic factory.
Because that's where they run Pork Pie Company.
Yeah.
The Chippy's just a little tiny spot of that.
Yeah, but if you go out of your way to find it, it is, I've said this in the past, like the best fish fry, I'm using quotes, in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's not really a fish fry.
No, but it's the best piece of fish that is fried. Like, if somebody, like, it's so much better than any other fish fry in Buffalo.
Well, they've really gone out of their way. I mean, even the fryer is imported from Britain. They're using British oil. They're like, they've done everything they can to recreate that experience.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job, and the product is one of my favorite things.
Well, the fish they're using is really high quality.
Yeah, they're using a local place that gets like super fresh cod and that you can taste it.
Yeah.
So that's also one of those things, like, it's not a huge deal, but like me and Allie became obsessed as soon as they opened.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, and also get the curry sauce because it's delicious.
The curry sauce is awesome. The curry sauce and then the mustard from Betty Krogsky. I need both of those in bottles in my refrigerator.
We just had them on the podcast last week, but Betty Krogsky opening up in 2014. That's the best food truck opening since Black Market.
Yeah. No, and like really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I love their food. And I am not a fan of traditional Polish food. There are some Polish things I like, but mostly a lot of Americanized sort of Polish food is really heavy. It's kind of bland. It's meant to be filling and stick to your ribs. It's not really my thing. But I really love their food. Their house-made kielbasa is fantastic.
Awesome.
The pierogies are so well made. They look like a picture of a pierogi because they're so beautiful. I really love their stuff.
As somebody who's a food blogger, it was like the easiest photography session I ever had. Was like trying to get like a nice picture of like all the food. I was like, wow, this is really pretty food.
It's pretty. And how do you make Polish food pretty? Apparently, you have to be the girls from Betty Krogsky.
But I will say, like you said, their pork pierogi is the hands down the best pierogi I've ever had.
Well,
in my
and it's
entire
super. It's like infused with a little bit of that mustard, right?
And so it's not like a sweet type of
but
thing.
It's got a nice flavor to it.
Yeah,
I love those girls.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and also just two great girls that are yeah.
So what else do we have that? Open?
I think the one that I actually have not been to, but I've only heard rave reviews. Up in Youngstown, which is a little bit of a hike.
I've been there.
You okay? Oh, you've been to Jaguar at the Bistro?
Oh yeah, I was there 2 weeks ago with Wendy Swearingen, the writer for Spree. We were just checking it out.
Yeah. So Jaguar at the Bistro opened this year. I think you know a little bit more about it than I do, though.
Yeah. So I think that he's been the chef there for a while, but it had other owners.
Yeah.
So they were making basically like bad country club food. No reflection on him. He's a great chef. Reflection on what was being offered at that restaurant previously. The bistro at Old Fort Inn, I think it's called, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And he bought it and took it over. And now it's called Jaguar at the Bistro. And his name is Victor Pera Gonzalez. Okay. And he is a native of Acapulco. Wow. And his food is really fascinating.
It looks gorgeous. The pictures I've seen are just like the plates and the presentation.
And so he uses some molecular techniques, and then there are some places where I think it works and some places where I think it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But whether you like the molecular techniques or not, the food itself is fantastic.
Nice.
And I love when I can eat something and have run through the Rolodex of seasonings, spices, herbs, flavors in my head, and I cannot figure it out. That makes me very happy. That's awesome. I would say eat the more adventurous stuff on that menu. That's what we did. Yeah. We did not really order the more everyday stuff. I'm sure it's great.
Yeah,
it's all Mexican flavored food, Mexican themed food. But the really adventurous stuff is the way to go, and it's really phenomenal. So if you are listening to this and you live in Niagara County and you have not eaten at Jaguar at the Bistro yet,
get off your ass.
Really, seriously, get up there. And you really want to order is the atole, which is this corn maize milk. I don't know, drink.
All right.
That they serve that's different than the traditional atole, but they put bourbon in it and they serve it warm, and it's freaking fantastic. It's so good.
I'm gonna do it.
Sweet. It's like eggnog, but 100 times better and no eggs. I don't know. It's so good. Anyway, we had a great time, and they couldn't be nicer people. Really, we were treated so well, and the food was phenomenal.
That's awesome. It's like on my top 3 places.
Get your ass up there.
I know.
Jesus.
I'm one of those people. I need to get my ass up there.
Right.
And also, 2014 will probably be known also as the year that like booze blew up in Buffalo.
Well, and that John fucking Carroll came home.
Yes,
hello.
He's part of that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I couldn't be more thrilled.
Yeah. And at the fact that so I also have like Ballyhoo and Hydraulic Hearth, which we're sitting above right now.
Yes,
both open and both offered like pretty good cocktail programs.
So Chris is here. He used to be at Mike A's at the Hotel Lafayette working under Tony.
Yeah,
and he's
a good guy to work under. The
barkeep here. And I've had a couple of the cocktails and enjoyed them.
Yeah,
they also have obviously killer beer from CBW and from all over. They do flights of beer and stuff, so that's great. I love Ballyhoo.
We went like a couple weeks ago. It was awesome.
I really love it. And Tim let me go behind the bar and check out how they've set up the actual working space. And for anybody who's listening to this podcast might know that I'm sort of obsessed with that. It's like when you go in and get to see how chefs set up their kitchen, it explains a lot about how they work and where they've been and what sort of mindset they come from, with French or Italian, whatever. Like, I love to see the way a chef sets up his kitchen. I also like to see when somebody has full control, how the back of their bar is set up. And Tim's a smart motherfucker. that bar is beautiful. The design is impeccable.
I thought the design like perfectly was, like we were saying, matching maybe some of the existing crowd that went to Malamute.
Yes, he still has $3 PBRs for all the people who get there at 10 in the morning ready to have a drink.
But also the design is smart enough where I think it would appeal to like the millennial generation.
The guys from Block Club love it there.
Yeah.
You know, Brandon and Patrick. So, yeah, I mean, it's really lovely. And Morgan, his wife, couldn't be a better hostess. And the bar staff is really nice. And Tim gets in crazy beers that really nobody else can get. I would say they're still getting their sea legs in terms of having a massive cocktail repertoire.
I would agree with that. Yeah. It seems like the opening menu definitely is scaled back from what he wants to do with, like, let's say a year or two from now.
Sure. And that's going to take some time because the truth is the bar scene is growing so fast here. The craft bar scene is growing so fast here that you almost can't train people quickly enough. And it's tough. As an owner, you get a guy trained and 5 seconds later, somebody's offering him a job somewhere else.
Exactly.
And, like Ed said on our second podcast, you know, if a guy works for him for 6 months, he may have taught him how to cut lettuce. Like, you can't just learn how to be a fantastic bartender who understands flavor profiles and nuances and all the history of bartending and every tool that's ever been used and all that other stuff in 6 months.
Yeah.
So, like, I'd like to see people stay where they are a little bit longer and learn as much as they can. Yeah. We need to see people who are working in bar and shot, plastic cups, you know, Stolio kind of places, step up and learn something new.
Yeah. I would say, even to touch back, that's one of the best things about Winfield's Pub.
Yes.
Is that the chef's son,
Tab's son, whose first name I can't remember. I'm sorry,
but is doing an awesome job. Really getting excited about cocktails, making his own bitters, making his own syrups and stuff like that. Yeah,
really cool. And you know, John Carroll is probably one of the people who has made an official, almost training program for his young barkeeps, just to bring this full circle, where they are endowed with a vest once they reach a certain level of their career.
I think we've seen the video of
Dave Bush getting his vest, and I think that John really understands that. And I wish that, again, we need people to stay where they are long enough to really learn something and to not hop for another 50 cents an hour or a title or a Friday night shift. To kind of like stick it out as much as, you know, we do in kitchens with young chefs. We need young bartenders to do that too.
Yeah, and I think as people see that, it's because it's so easily to not think of that as like an artisanal career path.
Well, because it hasn't been for how long?
Yeah, and I think as people see that as like a place where you can be, I don't want to say
learn a trade, but it's about learning a trade. It's like being an electrician.
Yeah,
it's about learning a trade.
Yeah. This could be a career. This doesn't have to be like a thing you just do.
Right. Yeah. And hello, more women, please. We need more women.
Yeah, right.
We need more women in the kitchen. We need more women behind the bar.
I agree.
So yeah, Miss Carrie.
But yeah, I do too. But yeah, so I think we're gonna have a podcast in 2015. That's maybe going to touch on more of the booze uprising, I think. Yeah,
with the distillers and the craft brewers as well as the winemakers. That is coming in early January.
Yeah, because
so we won't go too far into that.
Some new legislation has come out that's really been beneficial. So I think...
And there's a lot of stuff happening, you know, with all the new breweries opening and all the new distilleries opening and moving around in the distillery district. And, I mean, it's like crazy town.
Yeah, as great as this year was, like 2015 could be, like, insane.
It could be.
Yeah.
And we could be really drunk all year if we wanted to.
That's all I've ever wanted.
Don't tell my kids I said that.
This is going to be on the internet forever, Christa. But no, so I think that kind of sums up a lot of what I was really pumped about this year.
Yeah.
I mean, for me and you, like, this was one of the craziest years writing about food in Buffalo.
Well, the truth is I gave up. I mean, that sounds terrible, but for years now, I've been trying to be this person who is working on the monthly issue of Spree, which, you know, like right now, it's December 22nd, and I'm closing the February issue and halfway through the March issue and starting the April issue. So for me, Christmas is already way over. And so to be trying to have that mindset and working that far out and planning that much, all the photography and everything else, and then on top of that, trying to cover what is happening this exact minute on it's like impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's too much. It's also a mental thing. I can't make the shift. It was so hard for me to make the shift from being a daily blogger into being an editor of a monthly magazine. To try to do both of those at the same time, it's super challenging.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I just don't have the time to be out on the beat.
Yeah.
Beating Newell Nussbaumer.
Yeah, right?
That man's got some legs, So, I think that I stopped trying to keep up with everybody.
Yeah.
And the truth is there's so many people out there now who care about the food scene and are writing about it.
Yeah.
Super exciting. I'm so glad that I could be like, oh, that's all right. You guys go right ahead. You guys get those scoops. Go for it.
Yeah, get the page views. It's just been crazy. I remember Allie and I going into this year, we're like, this is a year where we're just going to kind of take it easy.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we're going to take the first 2 months off. And then as soon as we started back up, it's like, oh, by the way, all these restaurants are opening in the same month.
Yeah.
And good luck keeping up with everything.
No, it's been nuts. But the truth is, I think, a lot of the community, the restaurant community has been paying its dues.
Yeah.
And people have been out there. I think about Rue Buckley opening the Coda and doing an all local, different menu, everyday menu.
This was
2005.
Yeah, wow.
Or I don't know. Think of any of these people who were out there.
Yeah.
Ethan was CBW even. I mean, they had great success early on, but he was one of the first people to really do that. These people who have pioneered certain things.
Lloyd.
Yeah.
Right.
And did stuff that they had where they spent half of their time explaining to people what they were effing doing because nobody got it.
Yeah, yeah.
And really, early adopters of new ideas. And there's been there's a lot of dead bodies on the side of that road. There's a lot of people who have put their money and their reputation and their families and whatever else on the line to get us where we are today.
Yeah.
Which is where you can have 5 or 6 really cool, innovative places open downtown in 3 months, and all of them are busy.
Yeah.
So I just think we're getting there. Again, which I talk about all the time, we have to get more people who don't understand what's available here to understand and appreciate that. And I don't know how we talk to those people.
I had a conversation recently with Ed talking exactly about that, where it can be frustrating to be so excited about something and to think that everyone else can be super excited about this because this is a great deal, and then it still falls
on deaf ears.
On deaf ears.
Well, the truth is that half of the suburbs is still eating at Red Lobster and Olive Garden. Probably more than half. We're out of the Wegmans Hot
There's
Bar.
still a 2-hour wait for P.F. Chang's or Cheesecake Factory.
Right. And then there's a handful of people who are trying to support local and are eating in independent restaurants, but they're eating in independent restaurants that serve nothing but pub food.
Yeah.
So, there's a big leap there, and I don't know how we make that connection because there isn't – I've thought about this for years. There isn't one medium of information that communicates to that segment of the population. They don't all necessarily read the news. They don't all necessarily watch Channel 2. They don't all necessarily read Buffalo Spree or Buffalo Eat. So, I don't know how we get that message out there other than Ed wandering up and down the street with a sandwich board on handing out samples. I don't know. Ed, we're just picking on him terribly now.
I would pay so much money to watch.
That would be so funny. But I don't really understand how we get. I mean, Mike A was out there, and he'll never go back out of the suburbs again, I guess. I don't understand how because that is where a lot of the money is. That's where a lot of the
everyone always talks about if you could make it work in Williamsville or Orchard Park, there's millions of dollars there.
Right, but the problem is that those folks are not interested in what we've got going on.
No.
So I don't know how we do that, but we have to figure it out. For fuck's sake.
So if you're listening to this podcast, you're not one of these people.
Probably.
And so what you should do is tell your aunt who likes to pretend where she wants to go to eat every now and then and be like, oh, where should I go out to eat? Tell them to listen to this podcast.
Yeah, or take your uncle to dinner.
Yeah.
Bring them downtown.
Yes.
Do a tasting menu with them.
Yeah. I think I always try to do that it takes a lot of skill to try to figure out what is the aha moment that somebody can have. Like trying to find, like, maybe it's the pork chop at Black Sheep, and you can tell them, like, yeah, this pork is raised 20 miles north and from an awesome farmer. Like,
and then they cut into it and go, but it's pink inside, and then you have to beat them over the head with your plate.
You can't talk about that person right now. But I think trying to make some type of connection and, like, telling us the story behind it.
Well, that's the key, which we talked about in the podcast with Cam and Jason the other day, is that, like, the story is really what helps people have a place in their head to, like, file away and understand what you're trying to explain
also,
to them.
I think people like to then pass that on as almost like I learned this really cool thing.
Who doesn't want to be the person in the know?
Yeah, and so I think the key is to try to, and this is a goal to everyone who's listening to this, is to bring somebody who normally doesn't eat at good restaurants. And I'm going to say that in quotes.
Let's say at innovative restaurants.
Innovative restaurants. And try to bring them somewhere where there's at least one thing they'll enjoy, and then try to explain to them what's going on there and why it's important and why it's special.
Yeah, please do that. Yeah. Everybody.
Yeah. I try to
just do one person this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially somebody who has a big mouth, like, and works with a whole bunch of people. Is going to tell everybody at the
and
water
post
cooler.
Like a status every Friday about, like, thank God it's Friday. Like that guy.
That's the guy who has, like, a Garfield eating lasagna comic book cut out on his wall in his cubicle.
Who talks way too much.
That's the guy.
We need those people spreading the gospel.
Yeah, so let's
Buffalo
do that, everybody. And here's the thing. I think, Donnie, that we should put up a page on nickelcitychef.com and a page on buffaloeats.org that are the top 5 things you should eat this year, right now, if you are not a person who eats downtown.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yes.
We'll do it together.
We're doing
and
it
we'll
right
have
now.
it on both of our websites.
People are listening to progress being made right now.
Because, I mean, at least then we can maybe help people have a starting place.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of started that whole Buffalo Eats approved and our 10 is like that super simple thing where, like, if somebody's asking me where to eat, I was like, these are the 10 places.
But you know what? We should say, go have this, have a pour-over coffee and a sticky toffee pudding at Black Sheep.
Yeah.
Go have the hen's egg with black miso or the rabbit terrine at Buffalo Proper.
Or the flat 12 and an egg dish.
Yeah. No, that's what we should do.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, done.
We're doing it.
All right. So you guys think of something. Yeah. What can you do? What can you do
to
make sure that you can still get great food in Buffalo 2 years from now and that we don't go back to the land of the chicken parmesan?
Because as excited as we all are right now about all these new restaurants opening, like, we still have to eat at them. Like, people still have to go to, like, it's really exciting that everyone's opening these restaurants, but people are going to have to eat at these restaurants, not just, like, now, but, like,
let's have
a long time.
Let's have fewer dead bodies at the end of 2015 than we did, like, at the end of 2013.
Yeah, 2013
was rough.
Dead bodies.
All right, I think is that all we got, Donnie?
You want to tease about what's coming up in 2015? As far as
sure,
I would say, like, because as crazy as this year was, we still have some big things coming.
We really do
next year.
Well, probably the 2 biggest things coming. Share a back door.
Yeah,
and that would be Marble and Rye from the Christian and Michael at Black Market Food Truck, which is opening in the Genesee Gateway.
Yeah.
And the Genesee Gateway itself is a huge story for 2015.
Yeah.
Marco's already there serving up sandwiches. They've got a bunch of places going into the
Doggy
Gateway.
Style.
Yeah, Doggy Style is there. And then sharing the back door of Marble and Rye is James Roberts' restaurant, Touton, which is not a Creole Cajun restaurant. I have to say for the 100th time. Nice. It is low country southern fare with a lot of seafood.
It's going to be so awesome.
It is going to be awesome. And his price points are really appropriate for somebody who would like to eat there every week.
Yeah. And it's I mean, those 2 restaurants, like, if that was it, like, that's pretty big.
That would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we all know, I think, and I've had the gentleman from Lloyd on my podcast, that they want to open a restaurant.
Yes.
And I think that if it's going to happen, it'll probably happen in 2015.
Well, and that big announcement just came out that they are on that restaurant
show
that's got Joe Bastianich and Tim, what's his name? The Texas chef whose last name.
I know.
Anyway, where people go in and they get to run like a pop-up restaurant for a day. And potentially get funding for a larger restaurant. And I guess several of the restaurants who participated in that show last year are doing quite well.
Nice.
So it was just announced on Friday that Lloyd is one of the finalists, not a finalist, because there's lots of finalists. Because they give a lot of loans.
I believe
out.
they're going to be on.
They're going to be on in January, I think.
Yeah, I know the show premieres in January 15th. I think.
I don't have cable. I know nothing.
But I would say that knowing that they want to open a restaurant and have publicly said it on a podcast, so I'm not saying anything
and that
people
they already
don't know.
have three,
and now they have a fourth truck they just announced.
Right, four trucks and a catering van. That we're certain we're going to see at least news from Lloyd, probably. Guessing. Just guessing.
Yeah, something's going to happen.
And then the 500 block of Maine is going to have a lot of options.
There's like 3 restaurants.
Don Wharf's French fry joint is opening. I have friends who are opening a restaurant there that will be raclette.
Okay,
Raclette restaurant.
That's the French restaurant.
And then there's another place that I can't remember off the top of my head that is opening right there.
But I mean...
And of course, it's less than 3 feet away from Ocean. So the 500 block, as soon as we can get traffic restored and get the construction taken care of, it'll be a good thing.
Yeah.
And
so
then,
we're not slowing down.
No, and that's just the stuff that's off the top of our heads and that we know we can talk about. There's a whole bunch of other
stuff.
Really
mad about.
Right. So I mean, we've got, and I can't imagine what we don't know about. So
exactly.
2015 is going to be awesome, and look forward to listening to me and Donnie ramble on for another 52 episodes.
We're gonna do we're going all out. Let's talk. Like, how have you enjoyed doing the podcast? Like. Because I know this is kind of new for you. Because you've done a couple of these.
God knows I'm not new to talking, Donnie.
But I mean, I've really enjoyed this is our 9th episode. I've had a really good time. Yeah,
I really have liked. I know so many people in the restaurant industry, and I also do socialize. I'm able, as the editor and not the restaurant critic, to socialize with a lot of people in the industry. And so most of the people we've had on so far are people that I consider friends. But I rarely have concentrated time to sit down and have a really topic-focused discussion with them. Usually I see them at their restaurant, or I see them at the bar late at night, or I'm chatting with them via text or whatever. To just sit and talk with Cam and Jason the other night was awesome. And to sit and talk with Ed and Steve, Ed is one of my closest friends. Steve I've known for 20 years, but when was the last time I got to do that? So, I mean... I'm loving that.
Awesome.
It's a lot of fun, and I'm really grateful to you, Donnie, and to Tom and everybody else for letting me participate.
Oh, please. This wouldn't happen without you.
No, it's awesome.
We took those 7 months off or whatever, and it really recharged my batteries, and I'm super excited to get back into this.
I'm really enjoying listening to your podcast. I loved Robbie's story about his crazy New York dinner. The Kroksky girls had me laughing my ass off the other day.
I've gotten some. I've been very fortunate. Maybe booze has helped to get some really interesting stories from.
I mean, I've really everybody. The Bread Hive ladies were awesome. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope that other people enjoy it too. And I think. Donnie, I'm really open to people giving us feedback.
Yes.
So, what is our email address again?
It is grainofsaltpodcast@gmail.com.
Right. So, anybody who wants to tell us to shut the fuck up or has a suggestion for a show they'd like to hear
or
about.
has like a relative doing something interesting in the food world that we should know about and talk to.
Whatever. We're totally, Donnie and I have always been publicly very open to conversations with people, complete strangers, about things that they're interested in or would like to see. So please do, even if it just means that you want to tell me to shut up or whatever.
I would kind of love to get hate mail in a weird way.
Oh, I don't know. I've had lots of hate mail. You might change your mind about that after you get a good bunch of it.
I think we should finish this up by saying, so the podcast is now on iTunes.
Yeah.
it would be awesome if anyone who's listening to this would subscribe and maybe leave a comment or a rating, because I know that kind of puts podcasts up the charts.
Right.
So
it
to
makes
speak.
it easier for people to find us and to see us.
And especially if somebody's going to like the food section of the podcast, there's not a lot of food podcasts, so it would kind of help us put us up there. And also share this with anyone who would maybe enjoy it. Maybe introduce the podcast to your foodie friend.
Yeah, it's funny. You know who really likes this podcast is my mom.
Really?
Yeah, like it's so weird. Like, why would my mom like a podcast? But the truth is that like she knows what I do, and certainly she's friends with me on Facebook, so she has some sense of like the conversations that I'm having all the time with random people. But it's for her. It's like she gets a better insight into why I do what I do or whatever. And so I think. Yeah. Like if my mom could like it, I think really anybody could like it. My mom does not care about food at all. At all. So anyway.
Yes. So yeah, share it with who. If you really love this, share it with your friends and family, and we would really appreciate it. And we have a lot of cool things planned for next year. So
peace out. Eat local.
Yeah. And stay tuned next week. We're going to have a very short podcast.
Yeah, just a little announcement.
Yeah, so stay tuned to that. And thanks, guys.
Bye.